So when people say, I can't tell you're autistic, or you don't seem autistic, it's not really a compliment. It just reminds me that I've spent my entire life masking and that I don't really know how not to. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the common comments that I hear, usually floating around the internet regarding autism. If you're new here, I'm Cami. I am an autistic adult. I have 4 kids who are also autistic. One of the things that I hear very, very often is how there is this exponential explosion in the rate of autism, or in how many kids have autism now. And why is that? Well, I think a big part of that is that diagnosis is a lot better, and that there's this criteria that is really nailed down now for what autism is. Doctors know what to look for. Parents know a lot more what to look for. I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't really know what autism was. I think the first time I heard about autism was from Rain Man, like a lot of people, and then I didn't really hear about it again until I was a parent, and then it sounded like some really scary thing that was in parenting books, maybe like a little paragraph, and in parenting magazines. And to me it sounded like possibly the scariest thing that a child could have. And that was in 2008 when I had my first kid. So I think that part of it is that there is a great deal more awareness. Not all of that awareness is good. Some of that awareness has been fear-mongering, but some of that awareness has been positive. And so I think instead of slipping through the cracks and maybe going to special ed classrooms or just skating by without any sort of diagnosis into adulthood, wondering why you're weird or different or just feeling like a failure, kids are actually getting diagnoses and hopefully getting the help that they need and the support that they need at younger ages now. To sort of back that up, I am in several groups with many thousands of autistic adults, and some of them were diagnosed when they were younger, but many, many, many of them were diagnosed after their kids were diagnosed. A lot of the people in the group have multiple children who are also autistic, and after they were diagnosed, they started to realize that they had a ton in common with their kids, and were like, and then they talk to their doctor, and then, like me, they end up getting diagnosed too, in their 20s or 30s or 40s. And we aren't newly autistic. We've always been autistic. It's just that we don't find out until later. And then all of a sudden, everything that's ever happened to us in our entire life makes sense. We've always been here. It's just we finally have realized that there's nothing wrong with us. We aren't broken. We are just differently wired than everybody else. Okay, here's another one I hear a lot. And it's, but you aren't anything like my kid. Well, I hope not. Your child's 2, and I'm a 37-year-old woman. We're not going to have all that much in common. As your child grows up, he or she is going to change. My 9-year-old daughter is nothing like she was when she was 2. And she's not very much like she was when she was 5 either. She can do so much that she couldn't do even 2 years ago. And that's why I have no idea what she's going to be like in another 5 years or in another 10 years. People ask me all the time if I think that our second daughter will live with us for the rest of her life. And I always say that I don't know. I could see her being a college professor someday, teaching some complicated science subject. And I could also see her living with us for the rest of her life, and either way is fine. And neither one would completely shock me, because she's brilliant at breaking through locks and figuring things out, and she constantly surprises me, and year to year she changes drastically, and she constantly almost gives me heart attacks. So what I'm saying is, you can't expect an autistic adult to be like your toddler, because we're grown-ups. Your child is going to grow up too, whether they're verbal or non-verbal. They aren't going to be a baby or a toddler or a preschooler forever. You are going to see them change and grow. Your job is to be there and support them. Don't demonize their neurology. That is a part of who they are, because if you do, they aren't going to thank you for it. Okay, the next one is one that just bugs me, because it's one that I hear directly a lot, which is, in real life, you don't look autistic. I don't even know what that means. God, you don't look autistic? I never would have guessed. Okay, well, before I was weird, and I was cold, and I was snobby, and now I don't look autistic. I really just can't win. I've had 3 doctors tell me I would be Asperger's now, if Asperger's was still a thing. What does autism look like? Okay, I'm dropping in this other story right here. When Maggie was about 5, we were at a neurology office, not seeing her neurologist, who is a very, very good doctor, but we were in the office with a resident at a different neurology office, a specialty, and a resident came in and kept saying over and over again, "Are you sure she's autistic? Or are you sure he was using identity first language, so he kept saying, 'Are you sure she has autism? She's just so beautiful. Are you sure she has autism?'" I don't know. What are you supposed to look like? What are we supposed to look like? It's just so uncomfortable. Every time someone says that, I don't say thank you. When someone says, "Well, you don't look autistic," I just kind of look at them and say, "Okay." You have no idea how awkward I can make things. It's not really a compliment. I'm okay with who I am. I'm proud of who I am. If I wasn't autistic, I would feel like I didn't fit anywhere. I would wonder why I had a hard time making friends, why I didn't fit socially in classes, why I came to different conclusions than everyone else, why just my brain didn't seem to work the same as everyone else's. Finding out I was autistic just answered all of these questions for me. So when people say, "I can't tell you're autistic," or "You don't seem autistic," it's not really a compliment. It just reminds me that I've spent my entire life masking and that I don't really know how not to. And that's not really something I'm proud of. It just is. And then there is, why are there so many less girls who are autistic than boys? And I would say this kind of goes along with the why are there so many children who are diagnosed now as opposed to in the past too, that this is really because girls just haven't been diagnosed as much as boys have, that the diagnostic criteria originally was just really designed with boys in mind. It was designed based off of boys, not girls. And so girls present differently than boys do in a lot of cases. So our first 2 girls, the signs that we saw, because they are less verbal, were more like signs that people generally think of as boys. And because they are more sensory seeking, that was also more, I don't want to say boy-like, but their signs are generally thought of as more boy-like. Whereas our oldest daughter, her signs were more like what you think of as an autistic girl, like me. So intense interests, masking, socially awkward, probably shy, aloof, thought of by their peers as maybe aloof, although she really isn't. She's a lot more outgoing than I am. She is the one that's always out there trying to make friends, being nice to everyone in a more socially awkward manner, whereas I'm just shy, super shy and awkward. So there's different sides of it. Girls tend to have interests in things that are seen as more socially appropriate by society for girls to have, whereas boys, as they get older, their intense interests tend to stand out more than girls. And so girls just don't get diagnosed. And that's why you have so many moms getting diagnosed now, although probably a tiny number compared to how many are actually out there. So yeah, that difference, the gap between boys and girls, is because girls just don't get recognized and diagnosed because we learn how to fit in, we learn how to mask, and we hide it a heck of a lot better than boys. That is it for today. If you like this video, we'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in all things autism, we'd love it if you'd hit subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.